Utopian World. Author
Rajeev Shantalam Thatte.
Sydney, Australia. In a time when the earth was choked by corruption, despair, and injustice, the very air seemed heavy with the burden of humanity's failings. The streets of the cities, once vibrant with promise, had become murky reflections of a society lost in greed and betrayal. Governments, corporations, and powerful elites ruled with iron fists, their decisions leaving ordinary citizens in the cold, forgotten corners of an unjust system. There were strict laws related to rape and sexual offenses, sexual harassment and violence, dowry and domestic violence, financial frauds, cheating, fraud and money laundering and black money, foreign exchange violations, murder, attempt to murder and violent crimes, homicide and attempted murder, kidnapping and human trafficking, illegal liquor, drugs and smuggling, bribery and corruption, money laundering, benami transactions, corporate fraud, whistleblowers protection, lokpal and lokayuktas and undisclosed foreign income and assets. But those were of no value in today's corrupt system of India in specific and the world in general. Amid this pervasive gloom, when hope was a scarce commodity and dreams were often crushed under the weight of cynicism, a small but determined group of visionaries dared to imagine something different. They dreamed of a new beginning, a world unburdened by the weight of old evils. In their minds, the corrupt structures of power, the endless cycles of exploitation, and the despair that gripped the common man could be left behind. They envisioned a place where the scars of the past would heal, where communities could come together to build a society founded on the principles of fairness, honesty, and compassion. This was not merely a flight of fancy. It was a bold declaration of intent. They called this dream Utopia, a name that resonated with both the promise of paradise and the possibility of rebirth. For these visionaries, Utopia was to be a sanctuary, a heaven where hope could bloom like a resilient flower in the ruins of a crumbling society. It was a place where the destructive forces of greed and corruption would be replaced by a harmonious blend of science and spirit, where technological innovation would walk hand in hand with ethical responsibility. They saw in Utopia the chance to craft a future untainted by the evils that had so long plagued humanity, a future where every individual could flourish without the constant threat of exploitation and despair. The journey toward Utopia was not an easy one. It began in whispered conversations in dimly lit rooms, in secret meetings held far away from the prying eyes of a society steeped in corruption. These meetings, often held in basements or remote village tea stalls, gathered individuals from every corner of society. Scientists, artists, social workers, and even some disillusioned bureaucrats who had grown weary of the endless cycle of deceit. They shared stories of loss and betrayal, of dreams deferred by the relentless pressures of an unjust system. And in these shared narratives, a common purpose emerged. Aditya, one of the foremost members of this determined group, had witnessed firsthand the devastation wrought by corruption. Growing up in a society where every promise was broken by greed, he had seen his friends and family suffer as they struggled for even the most basic rights. His heart once filled with youthful idealism, had grown heavy with the sorrow of injustice. But in the depths of his despair, a spark had been lit, a burning desire to forge a new path, to create a world where hope and fairness were not luxuries but the very foundation of existence. Alongside him was Ava, a brilliant scientist whose career at NASA had taken her to the pinnacle of technological achievement. Despite her success, Ava was haunted by the moral decay she witnessed on Earth. She longed for a place where science was not exploited for profit, but used to uplift the human spirit, where every discovery brought people closer together rather than tearing them apart. Together, Aditya and Ava became the driving force behind the vision of Utopia. Their combined intellect and passion for justice provided the spark that ignited the collective dream. Over the course of many long nights and countless discussions, the idea of Utopia began to take on a life of its own. Plans were drafted, strategies were developed, and secret networks were established to gather the support and resources necessary to make this dream a reality. They envisioned a society that would rise above the corruption of the old world, a society where every citizen, regardless of their past, could start anew. In Utopia, they promised science would be harnessed not for domination, but for the benefit of all. Technology would be a tool for progress, not a means of control. And justice would prevail over the entrenched systems of power that had long kept people in bondage. As the movement grew, the group of visionaries expanded to include individuals from all walks of life. Young innovators and experienced elders alike joined the cause. Their numbers swelled to nearly 15 lakh supporters, a force of people united by the belief that humanity could overcome its darkest days. They organized themselves into teams, each focusing on different aspects of the plan: infrastructure, governance, technology, and social welfare. In every clandestine meeting, the discussions were filled with a blend of scientific rigor and soulful idealism. They debated the finest details of interstellar travel, the potential for sustainable energy on a new planet, and the ethical frameworks that would guide their new society. This movement was not confined to the borders of India alone. Visionaries and experts from around the globe contributed their knowledge and support. In laboratories, universities, and think tanks across Europe, America, and Asia, the promise of Utopia sparked a new wave of research and innovation. International conferences and secret symposiums became the breeding grounds for ideas that could one day transport humanity to a better world. These discussions, often held under the veil of secrecy, bridged the gap between theoretical possibilities and tangible plans. It was in this crucible of intellectual exchange that the blueprint for Utopia was refined and perfected. The final phase of the plan involved an audacious proposal: to leave Earth behind and establish a new civilization on a distant, habitable planet. The chosen destination was a world in the Novastar system, a planet with the potential to support human life, where nature and technology could coexist in a state of harmonious balance. This new world, which they named Utopia, was envisioned as a modern-day Nandanvan, a paradise where every individual would have the freedom to pursue their dreams without the shackles of corruption and despair. For years, Aditya, Ava, and their team worked tirelessly to transform this vision into a reality. They collaborated with leading space agencies, harnessed cutting-edge technology, and mobilized resources from around the globe. The journey was fraught with challenges, bureaucratic obstacles, financial constraints, and the ever-present threat of internal dissent. Yet, every setback only strengthened their resolve. The hardships they endured on Earth became the very motivation that drove them forward. They saw themselves not merely as escapees from a broken system, but as pioneers on the brink of a new dawn, a new era where humanity could reclaim its lost dignity. Finally, the day arrived when the spacecraft, a marvel of international engineering, was ready for launch. As thousands of hopeful citizens gathered at the launch pad, the atmosphere was electric with anticipation. Families, scholars, and workers, all from the common populace, stood side by side, united in a shared dream. The spacecraft, adorned with symbols of hope and unity, was a beacon of a future free from the corrupt past. As the countdown began, Aditya and Ava stood together, their eyes filled with determination and hope. With a thunderous roar, the spacecraft lifted off, ascending into the cosmos and carrying with it the dreams of millions. This moment marked not just the beginning of an interstellar voyage, but the rebirth of a new civilization, one that would forever leave behind the desolation of a corrupt Earth. The journey to Utopia was a testament to the indomitable human spirit. It was a voyage that transcended mere physical travel. It was a pilgrimage of hope, a quest for redemption, and a collective leap toward a future where every human being could live in dignity. In that distant world, the legacy of the old Earth would fade away, replaced by a society built on the values of honesty, justice, and unity. Science and spirit merged to create a paradise that was not simply imagined but was lived, a world where every sunrise heralded a new beginning, and every star in the sky was a reminder that hope, no matter how fragile, could always shine through. Thus, the story of Utopia is not just a chronicle of an interstellar journey. It is a saga of transformation, a celebration of resilience, and a tribute to those who dared to dream of a better tomorrow. In their quest to escape the oppressive shadows of corruption, Aditya, Ava, and their fellow visionaries have carved a new path for humanity, a path that leads from the depths of disillusionment to the radiant promise of a world reborn. The broken earth Aditya had always seen the world with a heavy heart. Every day, as he walked the crowded streets of Mumbai, he witnessed the pervasive corruption of politicians, the decay of traditional values, and the suffering of ordinary citizens. The city, with its frenetic pace and shimmering lights, masked a darker reality beneath its glittering facade. A reality where power was abused, public wealth was squandered, and the dreams of millions were trampled underfoot. In his mind, Mumbai transformed into a sprawling canvas of injustice. Crumbling roads, neglected infrastructure, and unkept promises were everywhere. Lavish mansions soared above sprawling slums, a stark contrast that painted a portrait of a society deeply divided by wealth and opportunity. Government officials, who were meant to serve the people, instead indulged in extravagance, while industrial tycoons amassed fortunes through dubious deals. Every step Aditya took reminded him of the relentless struggle for survival, a struggle made even more brutal by the crushing weight of bureaucracy and the constant threat of exploitation. The cacophony of honking cars and chattering crowds could not drown out the silent screams of the forgotten. On the streets, he saw men and women who bore the invisible scars of injustice, the elderly waiting for bus tickets with resigned expressions, the young laborers whose eyes reflected both determination and defeat, and the families huddled together in cramped dwellings, their hopes diminished by a system rigged against them. This was not the Mumbai portrayed in glossy magazines or high-budget films. It was a city where everyday miracles were a rarity, and the promise of a better tomorrow was all too often a cruel illusion. Yet, in that overwhelming darkness, Aditya also saw a spark, a fragile glimmer of hope that refused to be extinguished. Amid the despair, there were moments of quiet defiance, instances where ordinary people stood up against the tide of corruption and exploitation. He saw a street vendor who, despite earning a meager living, smiled as he served his customers. A small group of activists gathering in hidden corners to discuss ideas of reform, and countless individuals who, though battered by life, still dreamed of change. This spark kindled something inside him, a possibility for transformation, a chance to rise above despair and create a future different from the one he had inherited. Every morning, as the sun struggled to break through the smog that hung over the city, Aditya would set out on his daily journey, his eyes absorbing the world in all its sorrow and beauty. The streets were a mosaic of life and suffering. He saw beggars sitting on busy sidewalks, their stories untold. Construction workers laboring under the relentless Mumbai heat, their bodies worn and calloused. And shopkeepers who fought every day to keep their businesses afloat amidst rising costs and unyielding red tape. For Aditya, each phase was a story, a testament to the resilience of the human spirit, even in the face of systemic injustice. In his solitary walks, he would often pause to listen to the murmur of conversations around him. The clamor of political debates on street corners, the hurried discussions about rising prices in local markets, and the quiet laments of those who had lost their way in the urban maze all converged to form a haunting symphony of modern life. This cacophony was not music. It was the sound of a society in distress, of dreams deferred and potential wasted. Yet, in this dissonance, Aditya found a strange kind of inspiration, a call to action that resonated deep within his heart. He began to see himself not as a passive observer of the broken system, but as someone capable of making a difference. His mind teemed with ideas about how to counter the pervasive corruption and despair. He envisioned a world where justice reigned, where every citizen had the opportunity to live with dignity and purpose, and where the structures of power were held accountable. In his dreams, he imagined a transformation so radical that the very foundations of society would be rebuilt from the ground up, a new world unburdened by the weight of old evils. The more he observed, the more he realized that the problem was not with the individual, but with the system that allowed such inequities to flourish. In boardrooms and government offices, decisions were made that prioritized profit over people, and in the process, The common man was left to bear the brunt of the consequences. Aditya's heart ached with the injustice of it all, yet each pang only fueled his determination to find a solution. He began to collect stories, quiet testimonials from those who had suffered, and hopeful whispers from those who dreamed of change. These narratives, etched in the wrinkles of weary faces and the determined eyes of the resolute, became the cornerstone of his vision. As his resolve deepened, Aditya started reaching out to like-minded individuals. He found solace and strength in the company of activists, scholars, and even disillusioned bureaucrats who had grown tired of the rampant corruption. Together, they held secret meetings in modest community halls and quiet tea shops, away from the prying eyes of those who benefited from the status quo. In these gatherings, they shared their visions for a new society, one that would not only survive the onslaught of greed and injustice, but would thrive in a spirit of unity and hope. One evening, as monsoon rains battered the city and the streets glistened with water, Aditya sat with a group of fellow dreamers on a worn-out bench beneath a flickering street lamp. The rain, rather than washing away the grime of the city, seemed to accentuate its sorrow. Yet even as the downpour drenched them, their conversation was filled with fervor and hope. They spoke of radical reforms, of rebuilding society with fairness as its foundation, and of creating a space where every individual could experience the true meaning of dignity. It was in that moment, amidst the relentless rain and the harsh realities of a broken world, that the seed of a revolution was sown in Aditya's heart. A revolution not of violence, but of transformation. He began to write feverishly, pouring his thoughts and dreams onto paper. His writings were raw, unfiltered, and imbued with a deep sense of urgency. They captured the essence of a man who had witnessed too much sorrow to remain indifferent, yet still harbored an unwavering belief in the possibility of renewal. With every word, he carved out a vision of a future where hope would triumph over despair, where the walls of corruption would crumble, and where a new society could emerge, one built on the principles of justice, equality, and compassion. Aditya's writings soon found their way to a small but growing audience, sparking discussions in academic circles, grassroots movements, and even within the halls of government. The more people read his words, the more they began to believe that change was possible. His vision of a world reborn resonated with those who had long been disillusioned by the rampant corruption and inequality that defined their lives. Slowly but surely, a movement was taking shape, one that transcended individual differences and united people under a common dream. In the midst of this turbulent world, Aditya's inner light began to shine brighter. He recognized that the journey toward transformation would not be easy. It would require sacrifice, resilience, and a collective effort. But he also knew that the human spirit was capable of remarkable feats when driven by a shared purpose. The broken earth around him, scarred by decades of injustice, could serve as fertile ground for new beginnings if only the seeds of hope were sown with care and nurtured with unwavering determination. Thus, with each passing day, Aditya's vision of a transformed world grew more tangible. The spark of hope that he saw amidst the darkness was kindled into a blazing flame, a flame that promised to light the way for a revolution of the heart and mind. In that broken earth, he saw the potential for a rebirth so profound that it would redefine what it meant to be human. This was the story of his journey from despair to hope, a journey that would ultimately lead to the birth of a new world. A world where the old evils would be left behind and a bright, just, and compassionate society would rise from the ashes. Aditya's struggle was not just his own. It belonged to every person who had ever suffered under the weight of corruption and exploitation. His journey was a call to all those who believed in the possibility of change, a call to rise above the bleakness of a broken system and to imagine and eventually create a world of infinite promise. And so, from the darkest depths of injustice, a new light began to emerge, a light that would guide humanity toward a future where every dawn brought the hope of renewal, and every star in the night sky was a beacon of possibility. The call to action one evening, as rain battered the city and fields of hope lay submerged beneath a flood of despair, Aditya sat at his desk, poring over research papers on global governance, space exploration, and social re-engineering. The dim glow of his desk lamp illuminated the cluttered surface, books stacked haphazardly, half-empty coffee mugs, and sheets filled with scribbled notes detailing his thoughts on a better world. The rhythmic drumming of the rain against his window mirrored the turmoil within him. His heart ached for a future where injustice would be vanquished, where the virtues of truth and fairness would once again prevail. He had always believed that humanity stood at the crossroads of its destiny. On one path lay the continuation of greed, corruption, and conflict. On the other, a future where knowledge and ethics guided civilization toward new frontiers. The question was, which path would humanity take? And more importantly, how could he play a role in steering it toward the right course? Lost in his thoughts, he reached for his laptop, intending to draft a proposal for a think tank on planetary sustainability. As he opened his browser, his screen flickered strangely. Lines of static danced across it before a dark background replaced his usual desktop. Then, words began to appear, written in an unfamiliar script. The letters shimmered and pulsed as if alive, their intricate shapes hinting at a language beyond human origin. Aditya's breath caught in his throat. His first instinct was that it was a glitch, perhaps a sophisticated virus or a hacking attempt. But something about the message felt different. There was urgency to it, a sense of purpose that sent a chill down his spine. He reached for his phone and dialed the one person who could help him make sense of this, Dr. Ava Sinclair, his dear friend and an eminent scientist at NASA. "Ava, I need you to see something," he said the moment she picked up. "It's on my computer, some kind of message, but not in any language I recognize." "Hold on, Aditya," Ava replied, her voice laced with concern. "Share your screen with me." Moments later, she was staring at the same pulsating symbols on her own monitor. A hush fell between them as she studied the text, her fingers flying over the keyboard as she cross-referenced linguistic databases. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, she whispered, "This is no ordinary code, Aditya. This is an alien language." A shiver ran down Aditya's spine. He had always entertained the possibility of extraterrestrial intelligence, but to see direct communication on his screen was overwhelming. "Can you translate it?" he asked. "I think so," Ava said. "Some of these symbols resemble mathematical constants, universal truths. Give me a second." As she worked, a second message materialized beneath the first. This one was in English, but its contents were no less mysterious. "Aditya and I, your close friend Ava, both wish to meet you. Our mobile number is +1 2 1 2 4 5 6 7 8 9 0." Ava's fingers froze on the keyboard. "That's my name. And yours." Aditya frowned. "But who sent it? And why?" Before they could process the implications, a third message flashed on the screen. "Meeting arranged. Four Seasons Hotel, Washington, DC room 314. Come alone." Aditya's pulse quickened. This was no hoax. Someone or something was reaching out to them. And if this was a trap, it was an elaborate one. Ava leaned forward, her eyes sharp with determination. "We have to go." Aditya hesitated. It could be dangerous. Or it could be the most important moment in human history, she countered. "We need to find out who or what is behind this." After a brief discussion, they booked the earliest flight to Washington, D.C. The journey felt surreal. Aditya spent most of it staring out the airplane window, his mind racing with possibilities. Was this contact from an alien species? Had they been watching humanity, waiting for the right moment to reach out? And why them? Upon arrival, they took a taxi to the Four Seasons Hotel. The city buzzed around them, oblivious to the extraordinary event unfolding. As they stepped into the grand lobby, a concierge greeted them, handing Aditya a small envelope. Inside were a key card and a note, "Room 314. Enter at precisely 9 p.m. The tension between them thickened as they rode the elevator in silence. As the doors slid open, the hallway stretched before them, dimly lit and eerily quiet. They reached at room 314, and with a shared nod, Aditya swiped the keycard. The door clicked open. Inside, the room was dimly lit by a soft blue glow emanating from a sleek, oval-shaped device hovering above a glass table. The air hummed with energy, and Aditya felt a strange sensation, a pull, as if something beyond the visible spectrum was at work. Then, a voice, calm yet commanding, filled the room. "Welcome, Aditya and Ava. You have been chosen." Aditya turned sharply, searching for the speaker. But there was no one. The voice continued, "We are the Celestials, an advanced civilization observing your world for centuries. We have witnessed the rise and fall of your societies, the brilliance of your minds, and the darkness that threatens to consume your planet. The time has come for a choice." Ava's breath hitched. "A choice?" "Yes," the voice replied. "Humanity is at a tipping point. You teeter between destruction and salvation. We offer you knowledge, the means to transform your world, to escape the cycle of war and corruption that plagues it. But this knowledge comes with responsibility. You must be willing to leave behind the old world and step into the unknown." Aditya swallowed hard. "You want us to leave Earth?" A brief silence. Then, "Not just you. A select group. Thinkers, dreamers, visionaries. A new civilization must be built, not on Earth, but beyond. Ava's hands trembled as she exchanged glances with Aditya. The weight of the moment pressed down on them. And if we refuse, she asked, then your world will continue as it is until it can no longer sustain itself. A heavy silence filled the room. The enormity of the decision loomed over them like a storm on the horizon. Aditya took a deep breath. He had spent his life yearning for change, dreaming of a world free from the shackles of corruption and suffering. Now, standing on the precipice of the unknown, he realized that the future he longed for was within reach. But was he ready to take the leap? With determination settling in his heart, he turned to Ava. Are we ready for this? She nodded, her eyes gleaming with resolve. We were born for this. Together, they faced the glowing device as the voice spoke once more. Then prepare. The journey begins now. A new dream that night, as Aditya and Ava pored over the cryptic messages, a profound realization gripped them. This was not merely an invitation. It was a lifeline. A chance to escape the suffocating grip of corruption, greed, and despair that had consumed Earth. The thought ignited a fire within them, one that had been smoldering for years. Aditya had always been a dreamer, a man who refused to accept the status quo. He had spent years analyzing the failures of human civilization, from the collapse of ethical governance to the unchecked exploitation of resources. He had seen firsthand how political and corporate greed had crippled societies, leaving billions in poverty, while a select few amassed unimaginable wealth. The weight of this injustice had driven him to explore alternative solutions, but until now, they had remained theoretical. This message, however, changed everything. It offered a real possibility, a tangible path to a new beginning. Ava, ever the pragmatist, approached the idea with both excitement and caution. As a scientist working at NASA, she had seen the wonders of the cosmos, yet she knew how difficult it was to sustain life beyond Earth. Every attempt to colonize other planets had been hindered by technological, logistical, and financial constraints. But what if those limitations could be overcome? What if a planet already existed where humans could thrive? And what if they, Aditya and Ava, were chosen to lead this unprecedented endeavor? We need a plan, Ava said, her voice steady despite the storm of emotions swirling within her. We can't just decide to leave Earth on a whim. We have to think this through, find the right people, establish the right systems. If we do this, it has to be done right. Aditya nodded, his mind already racing ahead. It won't be easy, but nothing worth fighting for ever is. Think about it, Ava. A world where justice is not just an idea, but a way of life. Where knowledge is valued over power, and where no child has to beg for food or education. A world where greed does not determine fate. We can make it happen. They spent the entire night sketching the outlines of what their new society would look like. They called it Utopia, a name that had been dreamt of for centuries but never truly realized. Their vision was not just of a new planet, but of a new way of living. There would be no rulers, only facilitators, no exploitation, only cooperation. Technology would not be wielded as a weapon of control, but as a tool for progress. Science and spirituality would coexist, guiding humanity toward enlightenment rather than division. The first challenge was assembling the right group of pioneers. They needed people from diverse backgrounds: scientists, engineers, doctors, artists, philosophers, teachers, farmers, and builders. It had to be a collective effort, a melting pot of skills and ideas. Strength in diversity, unity in purpose. Aditya began reaching out to his network, brilliant minds disillusioned with the current world order. Avar discreetly contacted select individuals within NASA who had expressed frustration over bureaucratic red tape preventing real progress. Word spread quickly. Within weeks, hundreds of like-minded people had come forward, eager to be part of something greater than themselves. Engineers working in secrecy designed space crafts capable of interstellar travel. Scientists collaborated to develop self-sustaining agricultural models. Physicians prepared for the medical challenges of life on a new planet. Every obstacle was met with ingenuity, every doubt countered with determination. But there was one pressing concern: how they get there? Avar spent hours analyzing the data in the mysterious messages they had received. If these extraterrestrial beings were indeed reaching out, then it meant they had knowledge far beyond human understanding. They could provide the key to intergalactic travel. Aditya, meanwhile, led discussions on governance, ensuring that the same hierarchical structures that had doomed Earth would not be replicated in Utopia. The people chosen for this journey were not leaders in the traditional sense, but visionaries committed to the collective good. Despite the excitement, there were moments of doubt. Were they abandoning Earth, or were they merely seeking refuge until humanity was ready to change? Was it cowardice or courage to start anew? These questions haunted Aditya, but every time he saw the suffering around him, the homeless child is shivering in the cold, the worker toiling endlessly for scraps while the elite dined in excess, he knew they were making the right choice. Staying meant becoming complicit. Leaving meant hope. The final days on Earth were a blur. The team operated in secrecy, aware that if governments or corporations discovered their plans, they would do everything in their power to stop them. The idea of a self-sustaining, corruption-free civilization threatened the very foundation of their control. Yet, despite the risks, the movement grew stronger. By the time the departure date arrived, nearly 15,000 people were ready to embark on the greatest journey in human history. As Aditya and Avar stood on the threshold of a new world, they looked back at Earth one last time. It was a planet of immense beauty, but also of immense pain. They were not escaping, they were evolving. And in doing so, they were offering humanity a second chance. With hearts pounding and minds racing, they stepped into the spacecraft, their eyes filled with both sorrow and hope. The engines roared to life, a symphony of science and destiny merging into one. As the earth shrank beneath them, a new dream took flight, a dream that would soon become reality. Utopia awaited. The gathering word of Aditya's vision spread slowly at first, whispered in academic circles, debated in small gatherings, and later amplified by the internet and social media. It was an idea so radical, so audacious, that many dismissed it as mere fantasy. But for those who had long suffered under the weight of corruption and despair, it became a beacon of hope. Within a few years, a diverse group of supporters emerged, a coalition of scientists, engineers, social workers, economists, and even some disillusioned politicians. They called themselves the Innovians, seeing themselves as the vanguard of a movement to reshape humanity's destiny. Aditya and Ava led the Innovians with relentless dedication. They organized secret meetings across India, from the bustling streets of Mumbai to the remote villages of Maharashtra. Every meeting was a risk. Governments and corporate elites saw them as dangerous disruptors. Yet, they persevered. Their discussions ranged from the technical challenges of interstellar travel to the societal structures that would govern their new world. They had no room for greed or exploitation in their vision. Utopia would be a world of fairness, balance, and opportunity, a rebirth for those weary of Earth's decaying systems. As the movement grew, so did the dangers. Intelligence agencies took notice, shadowing their movements, attempting to infiltrate their networks. Some members of the group vanished under mysterious circumstances, but the Innovians adapted, using encrypted communication, anonymous forums, and underground networks to stay ahead. Their enthusiasm was contagious, and soon the group grew to nearly 15 lakh supporters, a powerful force determined to leave behind the corrupt Earth. Ava, with her deep connections at NASA and her unmatched scientific acumen, played a crucial role. She identified a celestial body within the habitable zone of a distant star system, a planet they would christen Utopia. Working with a clandestine team of astrophysicists and space engineers, she devised a blueprint for interstellar travel that defied conventional understanding. This was not just a dream, it was a meticulously planned escape grounded in the most advanced scientific principles. But there was more than science at play. Many within the Innovians movement were driven by personal losses, families destroyed by poverty, dreams crushed by systemic corruption, lives lost to war and environmental disasters. Utopia was not just an experiment, it was a necessity, a last hope for those who refused to accept Earth's grim fate. As the movement spread beyond India, alliances formed across the world. Underground cells emerged in Europe, Africa, and the Americas, connecting through a sophisticated digital network. The Innovians became a global force, pooling their knowledge and resources to make their vision a reality. Financial backers from the tech industry and rogue scientists, disillusioned with government policies, secretly funneled funds and equipment. Slowly, the impossible started to seem within reach. The greatest challenge, however, was the construction of a spacecraft capable of transporting a sizable population across the vast distances of space. Traditional propulsion methods were inadequate. But a breakthrough came when an unlikely ally joined their cause. Dr. Isaac Moreno, a former government physicist who had defected from a classified propulsion project in the United States. With his knowledge, the Innovians developed a propulsion system based on theoretical physics so advanced that it remained invisible to Earth's conventional detection systems. This was the game changer they needed. Despite their successes, time was running out. Governments around the world were closing in. branding the Innovians as radicals, their mission as a dangerous delusion. Arrests were made, resources confiscated, but the movement had grown too large to be stopped. The final phase of their mission was near. A remote desert facility in an undisclosed location became their launch site. Over the years, the Innovians had secretly transported materials, assembling what would be humanity's most ambitious spacecraft. The ship, named Supernova, was a testament to their collective genius, massive, self-sustaining, and capable of traversing interstellar space. It would carry not only people, but the seeds of a new civilization, technology, culture, art, and the very DNA of humanity's future. As the final countdown approached, emotions ran high. This was the moment of truth. Would they succeed, or would they become yet another failed rebellion crushed under the weight of Earth's corruption? Aditya stood before the assembled crowd, scientists, families, dreamers, his voice steady despite the gravity of the moment. Today, we take control of our destiny, he declared. We leave behind a world that has failed us, but we carry its lessons with us. Utopia is not just a planet. It is an idea, a commitment to be better than those who came before us. Tears were shed, embraces exchanged, silent prayers offered. For many, this was goodbye, not just to a broken world, but to loved ones left behind, unable or unwilling to take this leap of faith. With a deafening roar, Supernova ignited, rising from the earth like a phoenix from the ashes. In that moment, history was rewritten. The Innovians had done the unthinkable. They were no longer bound by the chains of Earth's failures. They were voyagers, pioneers, seekers of a new dawn. As the planet faded into the distance, Aditya looked at Ava, her eyes reflecting the light of the stars ahead. "This is only the beginning," she whispered. And so, the journey to Utopia began. The plan the Innovians embarked on an ambitious research program spanning 10 years. Under Aditya's leadership, they collaborated with renowned scientists, technologists, and space agencies from around the world. Dr. Ava, drawing on her expertise at NASA, became a crucial link in the network. Together, they worked on designing an advanced spacecraft capable of transporting thousands of people, along with the necessary supplies and technology, to their new home. Their search for a habitable planet took years of rigorous study. The Novastar system emerged as the most promising candidate, a star system with a planet that had an atmosphere strikingly similar to Earth. It had been scientifically evaluated, tested, and deemed suitable for human habitation. They named their new world Utopia, not merely as a dream, but as a tangible goal, a modern-day Nandanvan where hope and prosperity would flourish. The challenges were monumental. Transporting thousands of people safely across light years, ensuring they had a sustainable way of life on a foreign planet, and, most importantly, keeping their mission a secret from the increasingly oppressive and suspicious governments of Earth. Their group had grown large, but so had the risks. Every Innovians had to be carefully vetted and sworn to secrecy. Any exposure would lead to immediate governmental intervention, and the dream of Utopia would be crushed before it could begin. The spacecraft itself was a marvel of engineering. It was developed in utmost secrecy, using underground facilities in remote locations across the globe. With a combination of repurposed space technology, new propulsion theories, and the knowledge gleaned from secret extraterrestrial messages, the ship, named Supernova 1, slowly took shape. It was designed not only to carry passengers, but also to function as a self-sustaining ark, loaded with everything needed to build a new civilization: seeds, water purification systems, medical technology, and an entire digital archive of human knowledge and culture. As they worked on the spacecraft, another team of Innovians focused on the societal blueprint for Utopia. They envisioned a world without corruption, where leaders were selected based on merit and wisdom rather than greed and manipulation. They planned for transparent governance, sustainable infrastructure, and a culture that nurtured scientific exploration, creativity, and human values. Unlike Earth, where power rested in the hands of a privileged few, Utopia would function as a participatory democracy, ensuring every citizen had a voice. To prepare for the journey, they established training camps in isolated locations. The selected pioneers underwent rigorous physical and psychological training to withstand the challenges of space travel and settlement in an alien environment. Farmers were taught hydroponics and vertical farming techniques. Engineers studied advanced robotics to aid in construction. Doctors trained in cutting-edge medical technologies. Every person chosen for the mission had a specific skill set that would contribute to the success of Utopia. Aditya and Ava personally oversaw the training and selection process. They knew that their dream would live or die based on the people they chose to embark on this mission. Sacrifices had to be made. Not everyone who wanted to leave Earth could be accommodated. Selection was based on skill, adaptability, and commitment to the cause. It was a painful but necessary process. Even as they made final preparations, threats loomed. Governments began monitoring scientific groups more closely. Space agencies were under scrutiny, and the wealthy elite, sensing a shift in power, sought to infiltrate the movement. The Innovians had to work even harder to conceal their true purpose. Time was running out. The Earth was sinking deeper into chaos with each passing year. Wars, climate disasters, economic collapses, it became clear that humanity was approaching a breaking point. They had to leave before it was too late. Finally, after a decade of tireless effort, the day arrived. Supernova 1 was ready. The selected pioneers, their families, and the hopes of an entire movement stood at the threshold of a new beginning. The mission to Utopia was about to commence. Would they succeed in leaving Earth unnoticed? Would Utopia truly become the paradise they had dreamed of? As the countdown began, the fate of the Innovians, and perhaps the future of humanity, hung in the balance. The departure the moment had arrived. After years of meticulous planning, covert meetings, scientific breakthroughs, and relentless perseverance, the Innovians stood on the precipice of history. Utopia was no longer a distant dream. It was a reality waiting to be claimed. The departure was imminent, and nothing, not political resistance, not skepticism, not fear, could deter them now. Yet, the final stretch was not without its tribulations. The biggest hurdle remained securing the necessary resources, for an interstellar voyage, while the Innovians had pooled together funding from sympathetic entrepreneurs, scientists, and benefactors disillusioned with the state of Earth. Their mission required more than just money. It demanded ingenuity, secrecy, and resilience. Governments had caught wind of their plans, and while some were indifferent, others saw the movement as a threat. Surveillance intensified, intelligence agencies launched investigations, and some leaders sought to dismantle the movement by labeling it a utopian delusion. But the Innovians were prepared. Dr. Ava had worked tirelessly with her contacts within NASA, ESA, and private space enterprises to develop the technology necessary for their journey. The spacecraft, named the Phoenix, was the culmination of human scientific achievement. A self-sustaining marvel, it was designed to carry over 15 lakh individuals along with essential equipment, flora, and fauna to establish life on Utopia. Every minute detail had been considered, from artificial ecosystems to an advanced governance system that would ensure fairness and order in the new world. Despite the vastness of their ambition, the emotional weight of leaving Earth bore heavily on the Innovians. Many had spent their entire lives fighting for justice, for change, for a better society. The notion of abandoning their birthplace was both exhilarating and agonizing. As the final days approached, the Innovians organized farewell gatherings across the globe. These were not somber events, but celebrations of human resilience filled with music, poetry, and stories of the earth they once loved but had chosen to leave behind. Aditya, standing before a vast crowd in Mumbai, addressed his people one final time. His voice, resolute yet brimming with emotion, echoed through the air. We are not abandoning Earth out of cowardice or failure. We are departing because we refuse to be shackled by a system that thrives on greed and injustice. We are not running away. We are running towards something greater, a world where fairness is not a privilege but a birthright. We leave not with hatred but with hope. And one day, perhaps, the earth will learn from Utopia and reclaim its lost purity. His words were met with thunderous applause, but beneath the euphoria was an undercurrent of sorrow. Families were making impossible decisions, leaving behind elderly relatives who were too frail to travel, friends who doubted the mission, and a homeland that, despite its flaws, had shaped them. The media covered every aspect of the departure, dividing public opinion. Some hailed the Innovians as pioneers, visionaries seeking a new dawn for humanity. Others dismissed them as escapists, running away instead of fighting to reform Earth. Yet, no amount of criticism could sway those who had already made their decision. The Innovians were leaving, and the world was watching. The launch site, hidden deep in the Antarctic wilderness, had been carefully chosen to avoid interference. Under the cover of darkness, thousands arrived in waves, guided by trusted coordinators. The night before launch, the air was thick with anticipation. Families huddled together, whispering reassurances, while scientists made last-minute checks on the ship's systems. Ava, alongside her most trusted engineers, verified every function of the Phoenix one last time. Aditya moved through the crowds, offering words of encouragement, reminding everyone why they had embarked on this journey. Then, the moment arrived. As dawn broke, painting the sky in hues of gold and crimson, the Phoenix stood poised on the launch pad. A masterpiece of human ingenuity, it gleamed under the morning light, a symbol of defiance against corruption, an emblem of hope for a new world. The countdown began, hearts pounded, breaths were held. 10, 9, 8, Aditya and Ava exchanged a final glance. A silent promise passed between them. This was it. Everything they had worked for, dreamed of, fought for, it all came down to this moment. 3, 2, 1. Lift off. A deafening roar shattered the silence as the Phoenix tore through the atmosphere, leaving behind a world that had failed them, carrying with it the aspirations of those who dared to dream beyond the stars. Earth watched as they ascended, a trail of fire and light marking their exodus. For the Innovians, there was no turning back now. Utopia awaited, and with it, the hope of a new beginning. The voyage the morning of departure was unlike any other in history. The sky above the massive spaceport in India was painted with hues of orange and pink as the first rays of the sun touched the gleaming metallic surface of the colossal spacecraft. It stood like a titan, a monument to human ingenuity, a testament to the resilience of those who had dared to dream beyond the confines of Earth's corruption and despair. Thousands of Innovians gathered at the launch site, their hearts pounding with a mix of excitement and apprehension. Families embraced, friends exchanged words of encouragement, and children clung to their parents, their eyes wide with wonder. They were about to leave behind everything they had ever known: the polluted streets, the political turmoil, the injustice that had defined life on Earth. Ahead of them lay the promise of Utopia, a new world where they would forge a society built on justice, innovation, and unity. Aditya and Ava stood at the forefront, their hands intertwined as they surveyed the scene before them. It had been a grueling decade of preparation. Sleepless nights spent designing blueprints, countless obstacles overcome, and endless debates about the future of humankind. And now, the moment had arrived. The dream they had nurtured for so long was about to become reality. The launch pad was surrounded by towering screens, broadcasting the event live to billions of people across the globe. News anchors, reporters, and world leaders watched with bated breath. For some, the mission was a beacon of hope. For others, it was an act of defiance against the established order. Skeptics had dismissed the Innovians as idealists, but today they would prove that change was possible, even if it meant leaving Earth behind. Inside the spacecraft, a meticulous process unfolded. Scientists and engineers ran final system checks, ensuring that every circuit, every fuel cell, and every navigation module was functioning perfectly. The crew, comprised of pilots, engineers, and medical professionals, took their positions, their minds focused on the immense responsibility that lay ahead. Each passenger was securely strapped into their designated seat, waiting the historic moment when they would ascend into the unknown. A booming voice echoed across the spaceport. Final countdown commencing. T-minus 10 minutes. Aditya took a deep breath and turned to Ava. "Are you ready for this?" She nodded, a determined smile on her lips. "We've been ready for years." They climbed aboard the spacecraft, the doors sealing shut behind them with a finality that sent a shiver down their spines. As they settled into their seats, a hush fell over the passengers. The enormity of what they were about to do sunk in. This was a one-way journey, a step into the unknown. T-minus 1 minute. The tension was palpable. Heartbeats quickened, breaths became shallow. Outside, thousands of onlookers held hands, whispering prayers and silent farewells. The countdown continued. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. A deafening roar filled the air as the engines ignited. The ground trembled. The sky burned with the ferocity of 1,000 suns. And in a matter of seconds, the spacecraft began its ascent. The force of the launch pressed them into their seats, their bodies resisting the gravitational pull of Earth for the last time. The view outside the portholes changed rapidly. The lush greens and sprawling cities of their home planet shrinking beneath them as they pierced the atmosphere. The transition into space was breathtaking. As the shaking subsided and the weightlessness set in, the passengers cautiously unstrapped themselves. Gasps of wonder filled the cabin as they floated for the first time, gazing out into the vastness of space. Earth, now a distant blue sphere, looked peaceful from above, a stark contrast to the turmoil they had left behind. Aditya and Ava made their way to the observation deck, where a panoramic window stretched before them, offering an unobstructed view of the stars. It was a humbling sight, billions of celestial bodies shimmering in the darkness, an infinite expanse of possibility. Utopia was out there, waiting for them. Ava exhaled, her voice barely a whisper. "We did it." Aditya nodded. This is just the beginning. The journey ahead would be long, filled with challenges they had yet to imagine. But they carried with them the unbreakable spirit of pioneers, the determination of dreamers, and the unwavering belief that somewhere in the cosmos, a new world awaited them. A world where humanity could begin again, the new world after a long, arduous journey spanning several years. The spacecraft finally reached its destination. Utopia stood before them, a vast and untouched paradise, unlike anything they had ever seen. The planet was alive with possibility, a world waiting to be shaped by those who had dared to dream beyond the limitations of Earth. As the doors of the spacecraft opened, a wave of emotions washed over the Innovians. For the first time, they inhaled the crisp, untainted air of their new home. It was fresh, filled with the scent of blooming flora, a stark contrast to the polluted cities they had left behind. The gravity was familiar but slightly lighter, making movement easier. Above them, the twin suns of Novastar burned brightly, casting an ethereal glow over the endless green plains and shimmering blue lakes. It was a world teeming with promise, a world waiting for them to make it their own. Aditya and Ava stepped forward together, their hands clasped as they took their first steps on Utopian soil. Behind them, thousands followed, their eyes reflecting a mixture of hope, fear, and wonder. This was the beginning of a new era. With no time to waste, the settlers began the arduous process of setting up their civilization. Teams spread out to conduct scientific analysis, ensuring that the water was safe for consumption, that the soil could support agriculture and that no hostile life forms threatened their survival. The planet was alive, but so far, it appeared to be uninhabited by intelligent beings. The Innovians breathed a sigh of relief, knowing they would not have to fight for their place on Utopia. The first settlement, named New Dawn, was established near a river that gleamed like liquid silver under the Utopian sun. Using the technology they had brought from Earth, the Innovians swiftly constructed shelters, power grids, and hydroponic farms. Their society took shape with remarkable efficiency, every person contributing according to their skills. Scientists worked tirelessly to adapt Earth's crops to Utopia's soil, while engineers designed self-sustaining power systems that harnessed energy from the twin suns. Physicians and biologists established medical research centers, ensuring the settlers' well-being. Unlike Earth, where bureaucracy and greed had slowed progress, here, every decision was made with the collective good in mind. There were no politicians vying for power, no corporations seeking profit, only a shared dream guiding their efforts. Under Aditya and Ava's leadership, a system of governance was established based on meritocracy and ethical leadership. Transparency was paramount. Decisions were made in open forums, and every citizen had a voice. The economy was designed to prevent the rise of extreme wealth disparities. Instead of currency, a resource-based system was implemented, ensuring that food, housing, healthcare, and education were fundamental rights, not privileges. Education, in particular, was given great importance. Schools were built not only to teach science and technology, but also philosophy, ethics, and the history of Earth, so that the mistakes of the past would never be repeated. The settlers adapted quickly to their new environment, and within a year, Utopia began to flourish. Advanced technology enabled them to communicate instantly across vast distances, while AI-driven systems managed logistics and resource allocation. The people lived in harmony, free from the constraints of greed, corruption, and oppression. It was the society they had always dreamed of, a place where everyone had a role, and no one was left behind. But while the settlers celebrated their achievements, Aditya and Ava knew that challenges still lay ahead. The planet, though hospitable, held secrets yet to be uncovered. As they expanded their exploration beyond New Dawn, they discovered strange ruins, evidence of an ancient civilization that had once called Utopia home. Who were these beings? What had become of them? And could their fate foreshadow a danger yet to come? For now, however, Utopia was their sanctuary, a beacon of hope, a testament to what humanity could achieve when driven not by selfish ambition but by unity and purpose. As Aditya looked out over the thriving settlement, he knew that their journey was far from over. The dream had been realized, but the story of Utopia was only just beginning. Trials and triumphs, the settlers of Utopia had embarked on their journey with grand dreams. But reality was far more challenging than they had anticipated. As they took their first steps on their new home, the excitement of their arrival quickly gave way to the immense task ahead. They had left behind a world riddled with corruption and inequality. But here, on this untouched land, they had the opportunity to start anew. However, Building a civilization from scratch was no small feat. The first major challenge was survival. While Utopia was abundant with natural resources, the settlers had to quickly adapt to its environment. The planet's atmosphere, though similar to Earth's, had minor variations that affected respiration and agriculture. The settlers worked tirelessly to establish oxygen regulation centers, ensuring that every settlement had access to clean air. Meanwhile, the agricultural teams, led by some of Earth's finest scientists, worked day and night to cultivate food that could sustain the growing population. Despite their common goal, the settlers found themselves facing internal conflicts. People came from different backgrounds, each bringing their own ideologies and perspectives on how the new world should be governed. Some believed in a structured government with designated leaders, while others argued for a more democratic approach where all decisions would be made collectively. Heated debates erupted in town halls, testing the unity of the Innovians. Aditya, the visionary behind the movement, knew that if they did not find common ground, their society would crumble before it even had the chance to thrive. Ava played a crucial role in bridging the divides. Her scientific approach to problem solving, coupled with her deep understanding of human nature, helped her mediate discussions. She proposed a governance model that balanced leadership with collective decision-making, ensuring that every citizen had a voice while maintaining order and efficiency. A council of representatives was formed, with members chosen based on merit and dedication rather than political ambition. This structure allowed them to make swift yet informed decisions, setting the foundation for a just and transparent government. Even as the political structure stabilized, environmental challenges arose. Unpredictable weather patterns and unknown biological elements threatened their carefully planned agricultural initiatives. Crops failed, water sources fluctuated, and the settlers began to fear that they had overestimated Utopia's potential. It was during these difficult times that the true strength of the Innovians was tested. Rather than succumb to despair, they pooled their knowledge and resources to develop innovative solutions. Scientists developed hydroponic and aeroponic farming techniques tailored to Utopia's unique conditions. Engineers designed advanced water purification systems to ensure a stable supply of clean drinking water. Energy solutions were crafted using renewable resources, preventing the mistakes of Earth's reliance on fossil fuels. Every obstacle was met with resilience and ingenuity, and slowly, Utopia transformed into a habitable, thriving world. Social cohesion was another hurdle they had to overcome. With a diverse population, cultural misunderstandings occasionally led to friction among the settlers. Celebrations, traditions, and customs that once defined them on Earth had to be adapted to their new way of life. Rather than allowing divisions to fester, the settlers embraced their differences, creating a rich, multicultural society where knowledge and traditions were shared rather than segregated. Over the years, the challenges continued, but so did their victories. The birth of the first child on Utopia was a moment of immense joy, symbolizing the true beginning of their new world. The establishment of educational institutions ensured that the next generation would carry forward the values and principles upon which Utopia was founded. Scientific breakthroughs allowed for advancements in medicine, technology, and space exploration, solidifying Utopia's place in the universe as a beacon of human potential. Aditya and Ava, despite the hardships they faced, never lost sight of their dream. They had not merely escaped Earth, they had built something greater, an example of what humanity could achieve when driven by unity, vision, and an unyielding commitment to justice and progress. Utopia was no longer just a dream, it was a reality thriving against all odds, proving that even in the face of adversity, hope and determination could create a better world. A society reborn years past, and Utopia transformed into a thriving civilization. The once disparate group of dreamers had now evolved into a well-organized society that celebrated creativity, innovation, and equality. The citizens of Utopia lived in harmony with nature, harnessing renewable energy, cultivating organic food, and ensuring that every voice was heard in the decision-making process. The dark shadows of Earth, corruption, greed, and exploitation became a distant memory. In Utopia, every individual was valued, and the collective spirit of the people was the cornerstone of their success. Public institutions were built on transparency and accountability, and the rule of law prevailed, ensuring that justice was accessible to all. Education was the foundation of this new world. Schools were designed not only to impart knowledge, but also to foster critical thinking, ethical leadership, and compassion. Every child, regardless of background, was given equal opportunities to learn and grow, ensuring that no one was left behind. Advanced research centers thrived, pushing the boundaries of science and technology, with innovations aimed at improving the quality of life rather than increasing profit margins. Healthcare in Utopia was universal, driven by a deep commitment to the well-being of every citizen. Hospitals and clinics operated with cutting-edge technology, offering free and accessible healthcare to all. Medical advancements were shared freely, eliminating the monopolies and profit-driven motives that had once plagued Earth's pharmaceutical industry. Preventive medicine and holistic wellness practices ensured a healthier population, reducing the burden of disease and suffering. Governance in Utopia was built on the principles of direct democracy, where citizens actively participated in shaping policies. Decision-making was transparent, and leaders were chosen based on merit rather than political affiliations. There were no career politicians, only dedicated individuals who served the community with integrity. Corruption was eradicated through stringent laws and a deeply ingrained culture of accountability. The economic model of Utopia was based on cooperation rather than competition. While entrepreneurship flourished, it was guided by ethical principles. Wealth was distributed equitably, and essential services such as housing, education, and healthcare were not commodities but fundamental rights. There were no monopolies or exploitative corporations. Instead, small businesses and cooperative ventures thrived, ensuring that prosperity was shared among all. Social harmony was a defining feature of Utopia. Differences in culture, religion, and beliefs were respected and celebrated. The mistakes of Earth's past, wars fought over ideology and resources, were not repeated. Instead, The people of Utopia embraced diversity as strength, forging a society where unity flourished despite differences. Art, music, and literature thrived, reflecting the richness of human creativity and the newfound hope that fueled this civilization. Utopia's cities were marvels of sustainable architecture, designed to coexist with nature rather than conquer it. Green spaces, clean energy, and efficient transportation systems made urban life comfortable and environmentally friendly. Pollution was non existent, and waste was meticulously recycled, ensuring a clean and healthy environment for future generations. Despite their success, the Utopians never forgot the lessons of the past. Aditya and Ava, the visionaries who had led the exodus from Earth, reminded the people that vigilance was necessary to protect their achievements. Complacency could lead to the return of old habits, and they instilled in every citizen the responsibility to uphold the values upon which Utopia was built. With each passing year, Utopia continued to evolve, its people determined to create a legacy that would inspire future generations. What had once been a desperate dream had become a living reality, a world reborn, free from the chains of corruption and injustice, a testament to the boundless potential of humanity when driven by hope, unity, and the unwavering belief in a better tomorrow. Reflections on a journey, Aditya often found himself standing atop the highest observation tower in Utopia, gazing at the vibrant world that stretched out before him. The sky, tinged with hues of violet and gold, mirrored the hope that had carried the Innovians across the cosmos. The sprawling cities, designed with ecological harmony in mind, thrived with energy, filled with people who had once been trapped in a broken world. As he looked around, he couldn't help but reflect on the incredible journey that had brought them here. It all seemed like a distant dream, the struggle for survival on Earth, the relentless corruption, and the deep-seated injustice that had driven him and so many others to seek a new beginning. He recalled the despair that had gripped ordinary people, the voices that had gone unheard, and the suffocating weight of a system built to serve the few while oppressing the many. For years, they had battled against forces determined to keep them shackled to a life of exploitation and hopelessness. But despite every obstacle, they had persevered. Aditya remembered the moment the idea of Utopia was born. Sitting with Ava, illuminated only by the dim glow of their research screens, they had dared to dream of a world untouched by greed and deception. It had started as a whisper of fragile hopes, but had soon grown into an unstoppable movement. The gathering of the Innovians, the meticulous planning, the relentless pursuit of knowledge, and the unwavering faith in their cause had turned that dream into reality. The journey itself had been grueling. The voyage through space had tested their limits in every conceivable way. Years of travel, bouts of homesickness, and the constant uncertainty of what lay ahead had strained even the strongest among them. There were times when doubt crept in, when the weight of responsibility felt unbearable. Could they truly create a society free from the burdens of their past? Would human nature itself allow them to succeed? These questions had haunted Aditya in his loneliest moments. Yet, each time despair threatened to take hold, he reminded himself of the people who had entrusted him with their futures. The teachers who had left behind failing education systems in hopes of nurturing young minds anew. The scientists who had abandoned corporate greed to pursue knowledge for the good of all. The laborers who had dared to believe that their sweat and toil would one day yield a life of dignity and respect. Their faith had kept him moving forward, even when the odds seemed insurmountable. As Utopia took shape, so too did its ideals. The society they had built was not just an escape from Earth's failures. It was a promise, a solemn vow to do better, to learn from the mistakes of the past. Every law, every institution, every decision was designed with transparency and fairness at its core. The old hierarchies of privilege and power had no place here. Instead, a system of true equality emerged where governance was not dictated by a single ruling elite but by the collective wisdom of the people. The first few years on Utopia had been among the most challenging. Establishing agriculture, constructing infrastructure, and ensuring the survival of the settlers required immense effort and cooperation. Disputes arose, as they always did when human beings tried to coexist. But unlike on Earth, they had the chance to address conflicts differently, to listen, to understand, and to resolve issues without violence or caution. With each passing year, they improved upon their methods, refining the delicate balance between individual freedom and communal responsibility. Looking back, Aditya marveled at how far they had come. The gleaming towers of Utopia's capital stood as testaments to human ingenuity and resilience. The fields and gardens flourished, a stark contrast to the polluted wastelands they had once called home. Art, music, and literature thrived, untainted by censorship or commercial exploitation. Children grew up knowing only a world where their potential was limitless, where they were not bound by the mistakes of previous generations. And yet, despite all the triumphs, Aditya knew that their work was far from over. The story of Utopia was still being written, and challenges would continue to arise. Human nature, though capable of great kindness, was also prone to fear and division. They would have to remain vigilant to ensure that the principles upon which their society was built did not erode with time. They would have to guard against complacency, against the creeping temptations of power and control. As he stood there, overlooking the bustling streets below, Ava joined him. She, too, had aged, but her eyes still carried the same fiery determination that had defined her from the start. Thinking about the past? She asked, a knowing smile playing on her lips. Aditya nodded. It feels like yesterday that we were on Earth, drowning in a system that refused to change. And now, look at what we've built. Ava placed a hand on his shoulder. We didn't just build a new world, Aditya. We proved that change is possible. That humanity doesn't have to be chained to its past. He sighed, a mixture of exhaustion and contentment washing over him. Do you think we did enough? She glanced out at the horizon where the twin suns of Utopia were beginning to set. We did what we set out to do. We gave people a choice. The rest is up to them. Aditya watched as the lights of the city began to twinkle, illuminating the night. He realized that their journey was not just about escaping a broken world. It was about proving that a better world could exist. And as long as the spirit of utopia endured in the hearts of its people, their mission would never truly end. He turned to Ava with a quiet resolve. Then let's keep building. And with that, they walked forward toward whatever the future had in store, ready to face it together. The legacy of utopia as utopia matured, its influence spread far beyond the confines of its own atmosphere. What had begun as a daring experiment in human civilization became a beacon of hope for the universe. Other planets, scattered across the galaxies, took notice of utopia's success. Scientists, leaders, and explorers from distant worlds studied this once barren land, now transformed into a thriving utopia where humanity had reinvented itself. Aditya and Ava, the visionary leaders behind this interstellar endeavor, watched in amazement as their dream became a model for others to follow. They had defeated the corruption and injustice of Earth and led their people to a new dawn. Their names were etched in the annals of history not as conquerors or rulers, but as pioneers who had given humanity a second chance. As utopia grew, it fostered diplomatic ties with other civilizations. Intergalactic councils sought its guidance on governance, sustainability, and ethical leadership. The Innovians, once rebels against a broken world, were now ambassadors of hope. Utopia became a hub for knowledge exchange, technological advancements, and philosophical discussions on the nature of civilization itself. Its universities attracted brilliant minds from different species, eager to learn from its successes. The societal structure that Aditya and Ava had meticulously designed stood strong. The democratic framework ensured that power never concentrated in the hands of the few. Decisions were made through collective consensus, ensuring that every citizen had a voice. Justice was swift and fair, and there were no disparities in wealth or privilege. The values of fairness, innovation, and compassion were deeply ingrained in utopian culture. Despite its triumphs, utopia faced challenges as it expanded. The influx of new settlers from distant worlds brought cultural and ideological differences. Not every civilization understood or agreed with utopia's ideals. There were moments when the planet's leaders had to navigate delicate negotiations, ensuring that their principles remained intact while embracing diversity. But with wisdom and patience, utopia continued to evolve without compromising its core values. Over time, the advancements of utopia led to incredible discoveries. Medical breakthroughs eradicated diseases that had plagued humanity for centuries. Scientists harnessed the boundless energy of the stars, making resources limitless and ensuring that no one would ever face scarcity again. Art and culture flourished, reflecting the richness of human expression in ways that Earth had never fully realized. As Aditya and Ava aged, they found solace in knowing that utopia would endure beyond their lifetimes. They had not only created a world free from the corruption of their past, but they had also instilled a philosophy that would guide future generations. Their vision had become a reality, and the people of utopia would carry their legacy forward. In their final days, the two visionaries stood atop the highest peak of utopia, gazing at the vibrant world they had built. They watched children laughing in fields of golden crops, scientists working tirelessly to push the boundaries of knowledge, and leaders making decisions with integrity and wisdom. This was their dream fulfilled. With a deep sense of peace, Aditya turned to Ava and said, "We have done it. We have given humanity a second chance." Ava nodded, her eyes glistening with emotion. "And they will carry it forward. The future is no longer uncertain, it is bright, and it is theirs." And so, as the twin suns of Utopia set on the horizon, their legacy remained, etched not just in history, but in the hearts of all who called this world home. The journey had begun with broken dreams, but it ended with the triumph of the human spirit, a spirit that had finally found its true home among the stars. A new dawn, the morning sun rose over Utopia, casting golden hues across the thriving landscape. The once barren planet had been transformed into a paradise, its lush green fields stretching as far as the eye could see, and the sky clear and unpolluted, dotted with celestial bodies that had become familiar to its inhabitants. Every citizen of Utopia, young and old, paused for a moment to take in the beauty of their world, a stark contrast to the broken earth they had left behind. The journey to this day had been long and arduous, fraught with uncertainty, struggle, and sacrifice. But now, as they stood together, looking at what they had built, there was no doubt that their dream had become a reality. Utopia was not merely a place. It was a living testament to resilience, vision, and the unyielding human spirit. Every Sunrise marked a new chapter, a reaffirmation of their belief that humanity was capable of rebirth, of creating a society founded on justice, equality, and compassion. Aditya walked along the central boulevard of the capital city, Nova Prime. The city was a marvel of sustainable architecture, its buildings constructed with advanced materials that harmonized with the environment. Towering structures ran on renewable energy, while sky bridges and aerial transport pods allowed seamless movement for its inhabitants. Gardens lined every street, and waterways ran through the city, ensuring that nature remained an integral part of daily life. As he passed by a school, he watched children engage in immersive learning, exploring scientific concepts through hands-on experiments, studying history not through rote memorization, but by engaging in discussions about past mistakes and triumphs. Education in Utopia was designed to nurture curiosity, critical thinking, and empathy. The goal was not just knowledge, but wisdom. Further ahead, Ava stood at the research hub, overseeing advancements that continued to push the boundaries of human potential. Science and technology flourished in Utopia, but always with ethical oversight. Unlike on Earth, where greed often dictated progress, here every discovery was measured against its benefit to society. Researchers worked tirelessly to develop solutions that ensured sustainable living, from agricultural innovations to medical breakthroughs that prolonged healthy lives without exploiting nature. Utopia's justice system was a beacon of fairness. Gone were the days of corruption, bribery, and nepotism. Instead, the society was governed by a council elected solely on merit, their leadership validated by their contributions to the community rather than political maneuvering. Disputes were resolved through reasoned debate, and laws were designed to uplift, not oppress. The people of Utopia did not live in fear of exploitation or injustice. They lived with the confidence that their rights and dignity were protected. As Aditya and Ava convened with other leaders at the Great Hall, they reflected on the countless struggles that had paved the way for this reality. They spoke of the sacrifices made, the battles fought, not with weapons, but with ideas and perseverance. Every hardship endured had been necessary to reach this moment. They honored those who had given their lives for the dream of Utopia, ensuring that their sacrifices were never forgotten. Even as Utopia flourished, its people did not become complacent. They knew that the quest for a just and harmonious society was an ongoing journey. Each day, they strived to improve, to learn from the past, and to set even higher standards for the future. In the quiet hours of the evening, as the twin moons of Utopia rose into the sky, Aditya and Ava stood on the balcony of their council chambers, looking out over the world they had built. "We did it," Ava murmured, a rare smile gracing her lips. Aditya nodded, his eyes reflecting the twin moonlight. "We did more than that. We proved that humanity could start anew. That we don't have to be bound by our past. We can choose to be better." Utopia stood as a monument to the dreams of those who refused to accept a world ruled by corruption. It was a living, breathing example of what could be achieved when people dared to imagine a better future and worked tirelessly to make it a reality. It was a new dawn, not just for Utopia, but for the very essence of human civilization. And as the stars twinkled in the vast sky above them, the citizens of Utopia remained united by one enduring belief: that every struggle, no matter how great, could lead to a new dawn, a dawn that heralded the birth of a world without the shadows of the past.